Alright, Chapter 1 of Game Design. Alright, this chapter is filled with a lot of basic stuff, so I'll probably be skipping over a lot of the stuff on the slides and only hitting the main points. Alright, moving on. So, the objectives, what they hope you learn, and then what is a game? So, games are different from toys. Toys don't have rules or goals. You know, you can take a toy and you can do whatever you want with it, but games, you can't really do that. Puzzles have goals like games, but they don't necessarily have rules. You know, I can put my puzzle together any way I want to, but you get the idea. So a game, what differentiates it from a toy or a puzzle is it has rules and goals. Alright, game must include some kind of play activity, some kind of pretended reality. Either you're pretending you're somebody else, or you're pretending you're at another location, or you're pretending you're in another time, that kind of stuff. And some kind of non-trivial goal. You know, a trivial goal, hey, I'm going to win a paperclip. Nobody wants to play a game where the end goal is to get the paperclip. But to, you know, be the leaderboard on Call of Duty or something like that, that's not a non-trivial goal. And then games typically have rules. Alright, you guys all know what play is, and you guys know what pretending is, but here when they talk about this magic circle, the magic circle is that zone when a player or a person gets into a game and they actually feel like they're somewhere else. Hey, you know, I like to go play World of Warcraft because then I can be the hero. So I'm somewhere else. Role players sometimes get really caught up in the immersion. And there can be some things that actually snap you kind of out of the magic circle. Like if you've ever played Terra online. It's a fantasy MMO. And you're playing, you're like, oh, I'm this cool hero, and all of a sudden here comes some hot elf chick running by in a bikini, or the little Elden girl in a schoolgirl outfit, and you're like, what the? And it just kind of like breaks your immersion, it breaks your reality, and it kind of like brings you right back. So that's the magic circle. All right, so every game has a goal, a non-trivial goal or something to get there, and the rules define how you get to that goal. And there are challenges to overcome in order to get to that goal. Obviously, the more challenging a game, you know, the more engrossing, the more players seem to be into it. But if you become too challenging and players don't feel they can progress or accomplish or get to the goal, then they'll abandon the game. So when you're designing these challenges or obstacles, it's kind of a fine line. You don't want to make it too easy because then they rush through the content. You don't want to make it too hard because they can become frustrated and then stop playing your game. Alright, rules. We all know what rules are. So a game does not have to include competition. You know, you can play a single player game and not compete against anybody. So you do not have to have competition. You don't have to have conflict. You can play Hello Kitty Online or some crazy animal dress-up game and not fight anybody. Just dress your animals up. Sims, the whole Sims series, you don't have to have conflict. Entertainment and fun. Really, remember, your game doesn't necessarily have to entertain or be fun. Obviously, it won't really sell that well, but those are not requirements. So again, player must overcome some kind of non-trivial challenge in order to hit the goal. The rules determine the actions. The rules are, you know, what's permitted by the rules, what's required by the rules, what's prohibited by the rules. Video games permit only actions that are programmed into the game. Sometimes people find ways around that programming. For instance, in Team Fortress, it was not a programmed thing where somebody would shoot the rocket and then jump at the same time to launch themselves way across long distances. You know, the rocket jumping was not a design element of Team Fortress. But then when Team Fortress 2 came out, they saw that players liked that and did that, and then that became an actual programmed element in Team Fortress 2. So, gameplay theoretically consists of the challenges that a player must face to arrive at the object of the game, and the actions that a player is permitted to take to address those challenges. So think of a popular game. I'll do World of Warcraft. You know, what are the challenges that that challenge a player, or obstacles that a player have to get through in order to reach the goal in World of Warcraft? And ask yourself, what's the goal of World of Warcraft? You know, what's the final goal? You know, we have to defeat monsters. We have to earn enough coin to buy the things we want in the game. We have to raid, we have to get the best gear, build reputation, so lots of different challenges. All right, fairness. Players expect that the rules will guarantee that the game is fair. And sadly, nowadays, that trend has kind of fallen on the wayside in favor of pay to win. You know, when you go into a game like Star Trek Online, and I can buy a ship that has a special console that allows me to fire a special weapon once every 2 minutes, and that weapon's more powerful than anything you have on your ship, then I paid for an advantage that's going to probably allow me to beat you in PvP. So is that fair? Because I have this cool thing, but I only bought it. It's not like I found it. But in other games, like let's say World of Warcraft, if I'm in a raiding guild and I have really cool raiding gear, and you're not, and you don't have cool raiding gear, and my gear is way stronger than yours, I'm still going to beat you. So it's not really fair that way. So is pay to win really a bad thing? Is it really not fair when anybody can play a game longer and get an advantage over another player? Or they can pay money to get that advantage. So it's a fine line. It all depends on how you think about that stuff. But in the end, you want to make your game as fair as possible. All right, in a symmetric game, all players use the same rules to accomplish the goal. So in Monopoly, all players are bound by the same rules. You can buy properties as long as you have the money. If you land on somebody else's property, you got to pay, and when you're out of money, you're out of the game. But in an asymmetric game, different players follow different rules. One example of this is natural selection 2. If I play on the alien side, I'm allowed to run on the ceiling, up walls, and do weird things. But if I play on the marine side, I'm not allowed to do that stuff. I just have to walk around on the floor with a gun. All right, competition. When players compete, they try to accomplish mutually exclusive goals. My Call of Duty team against your Call of Duty team, we're trying to get more kills than you guys. But when players cooperate, obviously they work together to accomplish goals. My raiding guild will all work together to get through raids. And most games, especially computer games nowadays, have competitive and cooperative modes. In World of Warcraft, my guild can raid together, but then I can also go to the battlegrounds in PvP. So both of those things are kind of built in. All right, video games do not require written rules. The game enforces the rules. The player knows he can't jump too far. In popular games, you can't just go run around killing other players willy-nilly. Like World of Warcraft, if some guy's annoying in a pickup group, I can't just reach over there and start attacking him. And sadly, I don't really have any say in changing the rules, other than going to the forums and crying. But as far as those hidden rules go, the game provides adequate clues. If I click on or right-click on somebody and see that there's an option to duel, then I know, hey, I probably can't attack this guy normally, but I could challenge him to a duel. All right, your games can also have different paces, determined by the software or the board game. There are some games that are timed, there are other games that are not timed, and there are good games typically have moments where they force the player to act very fast and to hurry and rush, and then they have other times where they allow the player to rest. Think about how many video games you played where there were timed missions or timed modes, things like that. All right, when we create a game world, we present it to the players. There's a lot of different ways we can do that. We can use pictures, animation, movies, music, dialogue, sound effects, and a variety of other things. In today's games, the artificial intelligence is way more than it used to be. It used to be like in Doom. When Doom came out, there was a monster, and as soon as he was able to visually see you, he just slowly walked towards you, and he always shot towards you. Nowadays, we've got AI that can kind of hide. When it gets hit, it can heal itself, and that'll trigger it to use its own med pack. We have better pathfinding where they can get from point A to point B, and we even have games where when an NPC gets hit, like let's say Call of Duty or something, you shoot the bad guy, he'll actually run back and try to go heal himself back in the back and stay out of the line of fire. So things are much different than in the old days when we used to, in order to make somebody tougher, we just added more hit points to them. All right, aesthetics. Aesthetics looks to how does the game feel? How does it look? Does it look sharp and crisp? Does it look more realistic? That kind of things. Sadly, nowadays, obviously all games with better graphics seem to sell more and more. Games with lower graphics don't typically sell very well, unless they have a good strategic element to them. Look at Minecraft. Obviously, the graphics in Minecraft aren't that great, but look how much it's sold. All right, storytelling. Obviously, most games incorporate some kind of a story. There's always some kind of backstory somewhere, even the most basic of games. Some of the best games are the best storytellers, and I'm not necessarily saying Star Wars: The Old Republic is the best game, but the storytelling element in there is very strong. And because it is, a lot of people played it even though they didn't want to, because they wanted to go through all the different storylines. Right, and then all games have risk and rewards. You risk your player's health for the reward of the magic +5 sword, something like that. And this is one of the hardest things when you're designing video games. What's the reward going to be? So somebody kills 10 pigs, what's his reward going to be? If you obviously keep giving him better and better gear really fast, at the end, near the end game when he's raiding things like that, his gear will be crazy strong, and then you've got to make crazy strong monsters. But then what do you do for people that didn't get all that gear? They can't now necessarily raid or do anything, can't participate in those activities because everything is much harder. Or you make the mobs have so many hit points that the well-geared people can get through them, but the lesser-geared people would have to fight them for hours. It's like, oh, that's no fun either. So risk and reward is kind of a tough little teeter-totter to deal with. All right, novelty and learning. Just because something's new and unique or novel doesn't necessarily mean it's going to sell or that players are going to like it. When the Secret World launched, it's an MMO from Funcom. It had a very novel way of, there was no questing. It wasn't go kill 5 of these or go till you actually had to solve puzzles for the quest, like, you need to, here's the name of the guy that founded the town. You need to go to town hall and find his painting, and then you'd have to open up a browser window and type in that artist's name and find paintings from that artist and find which one matched inside this town hall. And so that was a very novel approach to questing, which a lot of people enjoy, but not really enough to kind of keep Funcom sustained. The Secret World is still running, but Funcom is now kind of scrambling, looking for an investor. Otherwise, pretty soon they're going to have to file for bankruptcy. All right, then the best games allow players to create and to express their own unique play style. Think about Minecraft. Minecraft is the big example there. I mean, crappy graphics, and honestly, what is the gameplay? I can build a house, I can build a mine, and that's really about it. But people love to create things. We like to design, we like to customize. One of the earlier games that you'll see mentioned on almost any gaming forum you go to is Star Wars Galaxies, because it allowed you to create cities, and everybody could put their house, and there could be a mayor and things like that. It allowed you to have a custom character. All people that used blaster pistols were not the same. Some people had more skills in blaster pistol discipline, and other people had more skills in, investigation and stuff like that. And then other things to allow us to maybe create a new life that we wanted. The Sims was very popular because it allowed people to, hey, now I can be a rich movie star, and I can have a really big house, and my character can just go out and date random people and do all this weird stuff that I can't really do in real life. So creativity is huge in games. Games like Monopoly allow us to kind of, to go to a different reality, but we can't really create anything in Monopoly. Whereas games like Minecraft and StarMade, allow us to use blocks to design, houses or all kinds of weird stuff in Minecraft, or gigantic spaceships in StarMade. All right, immersion, the favorite word of role players. Immersion is how much do I fall into that world? How much do I start forgetting about the real world around me and start feeling like I'm actually in that other world or that other reality? And it can be tactical, when you're playing Call of Duty and you're on the headset and you're like, dude, what do you see on the left, and that kind of stuff. You kind of get that tactical, in the groove feeling. Or it could be a strategic feeling, like I'm playing chess and I have to pause and what's he doing here? What's he thinking here? I need to plan this. or a narrative. You know, I feel I'm inside a story. I'm in Star Wars: The Old Republic, and I'm playing through the agent, and I'm trying to find, you know, the evil terrorist called the Eagle. So there are lots of ways to build immersion. There's also ways to kill it quickly. Again, the little elf or the elf running around in bikini is like, what the really, dude? Come on. All right, socializing. Obviously, nowadays, whenever we play a game, the first thing that comes through our head is, oh man, I like to play this with so and so. And that's becoming a bigger feature with games. You know, look at all the Facebook games that were popular years ago, all the MMOs that have come out since then, since Ultima Online and then EverQuest, and now look, we've got, you know, bajillion online games. So we can have local multiplayer, we can have network play, which is multiplayer distributed. So remember, local multiplayer, when Call of Duty, or well, let's not say Call of Duty, let's go back to way back in the day, there was a game called Falcon 4, and you could play it together on your LAN. Diablo, you could play together on your LAN. So it had that local play. You know, four of us could plug into a switch, and we could all play in the same room. Then you have network play where we're playing over the internet. We have LAN parties. We have group play. And nowadays, even people that already have PCs and consoles at home are actually going out to these arcades, and they're playing games just to be around other people. You know, playing games by yourself is very fun, but you can add a whole new dimension by playing with somebody else, especially if they're in the same room with you. You know, because that way, you know, when you kill them, you can talk smack. When you accomplish something, you can do the high five. It just adds that whole new element. All right, so to wrap this up, you know, you should understand the elements of the game. You know, games have rules. Games have a goal. Games have challenges. Know where those fine points, those teeter-totters are, those fine lines. You know, the challenges. If I make it not challenging enough, people will race through it and not play it. If it's too challenging, people will stop. Risk versus reward. If I make the reward too great, I have problems later on. If I make the reward too small, then people don't want to do it because the reward sucks. All right, that about wraps up this chapter. Let's talk about your assignments this week. So if you go into the course and then go into week 1 and then go into assignments, you'll see you've got the syllabus quiz. You've got an icebreaker post to do. You've got an assignment where you're going to write something on a Word document and submit it. You've got a chapter quiz, so make sure as you're reading, I typically, when I was going through stuff like this, I would have the book open and be reading it and then have the quiz open and then kind of like glance over a couple questions from the quiz and then start reading a couple pages and see if anything kind of jumped out. And that way I can kind of do that all together in one thing rather than trying to read the chapter and then the next day go back and try to do the quiz and then find where those answers were, things like that. So it just seemed like it took more time to do it that way. If I did it all in one shot, I tended to find the answers a lot easier. All right, there's some game research, then there's another forum post, and then there's an extra credit thing. So again, remember, if you have any questions, make sure you email me, jmcnamara@starkstate.edu, or use Angel. Remember, I'm in Angel several times a day. I'm only in my Stark State email once or twice a day, so it's typically easier to get a hold of me through Angel. All right, guys, we'll talk to you later.